Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome, everybody, to the Sports Haze Midweek Roundup. I'm Matt Shetler. I'm joined by Jess Root, as always. How you doing tonight, Jess?
Doing wonderfully.
That is great. We have a nice show tonight. Lots of stuff to discuss. We got some NFL. We got some big time, and I mean big time, MLB playoff games coming up this weekend. And today's going to be a college football show mostly. We're going to be joined by John Hirschberger, hopefully again. We were hoping to get him last week. We got him back this week, so we got a lot on tap. But before we get started here, Jess, let's get some people to call in. How about giving us a call at 619-768-2949. We'll answer any of your questions. Or if you don't catch us live, feel free to always download us. And make sure you swing by Sports Haze. Check out all the good material on there. Anything you want to read, you can find on Sports Haze. I even just wrote a new article that we'll be talking about here in a little bit as well. But just there was a big football game on Monday, Vikings-Jets, and it kind of played out the way a typical Brett Favre game plays out. And, you know, he's either going to – the Vikings looked awful in the first half. They come around, Favre hits a big pass to newly acquired Randy Moss. That gets the offense going, and then the game on the line, ball in Favre's hand. It's always a make-or-break situation, and the Vikings broke this time. As Favre to a pick for a touchdown, this team's sitting at 1-3 now, and they're in very bad shape. And do you still feel now that Brett Favre can get this team deep into the playoffs?
He can. I think it's going to come down to his health. What seems to be the concern now is that we've been talking in the news today is that it might consider sitting a couple of games if his tendonitis in his elbow gets worse. And while that might cause for some concern, we saw him play the last half of 2 seasons ago with the Jets and be absolutely terrible. Might not be a bad idea, and it would be a blow for the team to have him go down a bit all. But it could be a positive as well to have Tavares Jackson jump in and see what they've got there. Because, I mean, before Favre came, he was the guy, and they were riding him. But we'll have to wait and see. I mean, that game was typical Favre, and they came down to the end. Well, I actually have a little concern with the Jets still. They played wonderfully, but they're going to run into some issues later on down the stretch. Is the fact that they can't punch it into the end zone. They're relying a lot on the field goal kicking, and but that could be a concern for them coming down the stretch.
Yes and no. I buy the concern, but we've seen a very tough Baltimore Ravens team win a Super Bowl like that. We've seen the Pittsburgh Steelers win multiple Super Bowls like that. You know, you get points, you don't turn the ball over, which Mark Sanchez has been beautiful with the football up to this point. I mean, we've knocked him a little bit on this show, but Mark Sanchez has taken care of the football. He's taken, other than that Week 1 game, he's taken what's there. He'll take his shots when they're there, and they win with defense. And when you got a defense, and, you know, Revis hasn't been playing. I thought Cromartie did a great job on Moss. And, you know, even though they're missing a Chris Jenkins, this team is very good defensively. And, you know, granted, they're going to want 6 each time in the red zone, but as long as they're scoring and not letting teams score, the formula seems to work.
It does. The worry that I have is, particularly in the AFC, when you've got 2 teams like Pittsburgh with Roethlisberger coming back, they haven't been particularly good in the red zone so far. However, Roethlisberger is going to be all the difference, and you've got Baltimore with the offensive weapons, and their defenses are at least on par with the Jets defense, and so I think that's going to be the challenge down the stretch and coming into the playoffs.
Now, I got to ask this because we wouldn't be doing our job if we didn't. Now, all of a sudden we have the allegations of Brett Favre and Jen Sturger, now the host of whatever show she's on, the Daily Line show, and I don't even want to get into the situation, but it's off. I mean, he could be suspended. You know, Roger Goodell likes his power trip. Do you see Roger, if anything comes out, do you see Roger Goodell suspending a guy like Brett Favre?
I could see it happening, although I question why in the world you would do that. So an inappropriate text message could get you suspended, but what happened with Braylon Edwards? I mean, his team, he didn't do a thing about Braylon Edwards this time around. How is sending inappropriate text even on par with drunk driving, especially when you have someone who has been in a situation, in a drunk driving situation where somebody died? So if he gets suspended, I think it's ridiculous. That should not be suspended.
Yeah, that I agree with you there. My thing is the timing. I don't even want to get into the details thing, but if it turned out to be something serious where they look into something, I tell you what, the timing of his elbow injury, that's something they sweep under the table, and maybe they suspend him without letting it public. And as far as the public knows, he sits out a couple games because of his elbow. But either way, if Favre misses a couple games and Tavares Jackson comes in, plays well, and the Vikings win too, you got to think the way, Favre just hasn't been playing that well lately. There's no way Brad Childress sits for Jackson, but I've always been a fan of Jackson's talent. You've got Adrian Peterson there, and I think he's talented enough to win with. I really do. So they might have a situation on their hands.
They might. I don't think there's going to be anybody on the team, though, that's going to jump on the Tavares train, especially since, Tavares showed that he can lead a playoff team. What he didn't show was to be able to win with the playoff team, and that's what they have Favre. Tavares Jackson could take them to playoffs, but Favre could take them to the Super Bowl if he's right, and that's what they're counting on. That's what it's going to come down to. Is as long as they get into the playoffs, they've got Favre. And it's live or die by Favre, and it's more often than not been die at the last second, but they get him just there.
You know what, when we started this show, the first thing I think we said off the air is we don't want to talk about Brett Favre too much, but we seem to talk about him every week. The guy just can't stay out of the news. Other news going on, stuff we don't really need to talk about too much. Jay Cutler expected to start Sunday. Big injuries here. This could help the Vikings out a little bit as Jermichael Finley and Nick Barnett may miss the season for the Packers now. And those are two big-time losses already with Ryan Grant on the sidelines.
Yeah, they've been decimated with injuries this year, and unfortunately, at least for how we sound as people with opinions, it's looking like our picks for Green Bay is not going to happen unless they get healthy.
Browns might have to start Colt McCoy, which everybody wants to see Colt McCoy play, but I don't think Colt McCoy wants to be starting against the Steelers defense. How bad could that get for McCoy?
I don't know. I think he'll be excited at the opportunity. He's a gamer. He's a tough kid. He played against some big-time programs in college. Is he going to be a little bit worried? Maybe. Really, how bad could it be? He's going to get on. Basically, with pretty much any team he's going to play, the Cleveland offensive line is not great. They're not able to protect him. So I think, if anything else, why not get that game out of the way early, and so that everywhere you have to go is just better.
Yes, we like to talk about Michael Vick a lot. We both have found out, we love the way he's played early, then he gets hurt. Koff did not play very. He did not play bad at all last week. Vick against the Falcons is something pretty much everybody wants to see. He hasn't been ruled out, but, who do you go with if you're Andy Reid? Because right now both guys are, Vick's last game was good, and Koff's last game was good. How do you put one of these guys on the bench?
That's really hard. The thing that makes it a little bit easier for me is the fact that Cobb, you can't bring in for a package. He's not the type of quarterback that you could bring in like your relief pitcher and have it be something to change. Vic, you can. So you can start Cobb and have Vic in your game plan for different things and traditionally, teams don't like doing that. It becomes an issue with the team. But Vic is the type of player that you can bring up off the bench, and it's a completely different dynamic. You start Vic, you have to keep him in the whole game because there's no reason to bring Cobb in to bring a different dynamic because you don't have that.
Agreed. I couldn't agree